You have been given this chance. Consider yourself lucky to tell your story to these gentlemen. Nothing more. We will know if you lie. And if you do, you will find yourself in the precise position that we found you. So speak, and only the truth, and tell of what befell you at the black hands of the Inquisition.
I was sick. Sick unto death with that long agony. And when they at length bound me, I was permitted to sit. I felt that my senses were leaving me. Sentence? Yes, the dread sentence of death was the last of distinct accentuation which reached my ears. Yet, for a while I saw, with how terrible an exaggeration, I saw the lips of the black-robed judges. They appeared to me white, whiter than the sheet upon which I had been asked to trace these words, and thin, even to grotesqueness, thin with the intensity of their expression of firmness, of immovable resolution, of stern contempt, of human torture. I saw the fashioned syllables of my name, and I shuddered, because no sound succeeded, for then, all at once, the figures of the judges vanished, as if magically from before me. The tall candles in the room sank into nothingness. Their flames went out utterly. The blackness of darkness supervened. All sensations appeared swallowed up as if in a mad, rushing descent, as of the soul into Hades. And then, silence and stillness. Night, the universe. I had swooned, but still will not say that all of consciousness was lost. What of it there remained, I will not attempt to define, or even to describe. Yet, all was not lost in the deepest slumber. No, in delirium. No, in the swoon. No, in the grave. No, even in death. All is not lost. Else there is no immortality for man. These shadows of memory tell indistinct of tall figures that lifted and bore me in silence. Down, down, down. Hideous dizziness oppresses me at the mere idea of the interminableness of that descent. For this, I call to mind dampness and flatness. There, all is madness. The madness of a mind which busies itself among forbidden things. Very suddenly, there came to my soul motion and sound, the tumultuous motion of my heart, and in my ears the sound of its beat. So far, I had not opened my eyes. I felt that I lay upon my back, unbound. I reached out my hand, and it fell upon something damp and hard. There I suffered it to remain for many minutes, while I strove to imagine where and what I could be. I longed, yet dared not employ my vision. I dreaded the first glance at objects around me. It was not that I feared to look upon things horrible, no, but that I grew aghast lest there should be nothing to see. With wild desperation at heart, I quickly unclosed my eyes. The blackness of eternal night encompassed me. I struggled for breath. and thrust my arms wildly above and around me in all directions. I felt nothing, yet dreaded to move a step, lest I should be impeded by the walls of a tomb. Perspiration burst from every pore and stood in cold, big beads upon my forehead. The agony of suspense grew at length intolerable, and I cautiously moved forward, with my arms extended and my eyes straining from their sockets in the hope of catching some faint ray of light. I had succeeded in this manner for some 10 or 12 paces when the torn remnant of my robe became entangled between my legs. I stepped on it and fell violently to my face. Confusion attending my fall, I failed to apprehend a somewhat startling circumstance, which yet, in a few seconds afterward, arrested my attention. It was this. My chin rested upon the floor, but my lips and the upper portion of my head, although seemingly to less elevation than the chin, touched nothing. At the same time, my forehead seemed bathed in a clammy vapor, and a peculiar smell of decayed fungus arose to my nostrils. Forward and arm, and shuddered to find that I had fallen at the very brink of a circular pit, whose extent, of course, I had no means of ascertaining at the moment. Groping in the masonry just below the margin, I succeeded in dislodging a small fragment and let it fall into the abyss. For many seconds I hearkened to its reverberations as it dashed against the sides of the chasm in its descent. Then there was a sudden plunge in the water, succeeded by loud echoes. At the same time, there came a sound resembling the quick opening and the as rapid a closing of a door overhead, when a faint gleam of light flashed through suddenly and as suddenly faded away. So clearly the doom which had been prepared for me, and congratulated myself upon the timely accident by which I had escaped. I stepped before my fallen. Had seen me no more. Shaking in every limb, I groped my way back to the wall of the prison, resolved there to perish rather than risk the terrors of the well. Now, I was the veriest of cowards. Agitation of spirit kept me away for many long hours, but at length I again slumbered. Rousing, I found beside me a loaf and a pitcher of water. A burning thirst consumed me, and I emptied the vessel at a draught. I must have been drugged. For scarcely had I drunk before I became irresistibly drowsy. Deep sleep for the moment, a sleep like that of death. Long it lasted, of course, I know not. When once again I closed my eyes, objects around me were whispered by a wild, sulphurous lustre, the origin of which I could not at first determine. I was unable to see the extent and aspect of the prison. The general shape of the prison was square, much like this chamber in which you hold me. When I had taken the masonry, now seemed to be iron or some other metal in huge plates. These surfaces were rudely daubed with figures of fiends, in aspects of menace, with skeleton forms and other more really fearful images. I now turned my attention to the floor, which was of stone. At the center, from the circular pit of jaws I had escaped. All this I saw indistinctly, and by much effort. My personal condition had been greatly changed during slumber. I now lay upon my back, at full length, upon a low species of framework of wood. It was much like this wooden table. To this, I was securely bound by a long strap resembling a thick, wide bandage. We fastened many convolutions, but my limbs and body, living at the bottom only my head and my left arm, to such an extent that by dint of much exertion, I could supply myself with food from an earthen dish which lay by my side on the framework. upward now. Surveyed the scene. It was some 30 or 40 feet overhead and constructed much of the side walls. One of its panels, a very singular figure, directed my whole attention. It was the painted image of time, much as he is commonly represented, save that in lieu of a sight, he held what, at a casual glance, I suppose to be the image of a huge pendulum, such as we see on antique clocks. There was, however, something about this device which made me regard it more attentively. When I gazed directly up, its position was immediately over my own. I fancied I saw it in motion. Afterward, the fancy was confirmed. Its sweep was brief and, of course, slow. I gazed at it for some minutes, somewhat in fear, but oh, I wonder. There, in the length of observing its dull movement, I turned my eyes upon the other opposite side. A slight noise attracted my notice now, and looking to the floor, I saw several enormous rats traversing it. Even then, while I gazed, they came up in troops from the well which lay just within view to my right. They were ravenous, allured by the scent of the meat. This, it took much attention and effort to scare them away. Half an hour, perhaps even an hour, before again I cast my eyes open. I saw then, amazed and confounded. The sweep of the pendulum had increased in extent by nearly a yard. As a natural consequence, its velocity had increased. But, what mainly disturbed me was the idea that it had perceptibly descended. Observed, with what horror it is needless to say, that the nether extremities of the pendulum were formed of a crescent of glittering steel. About a foot in length from horn to horn, the horns stand outward, and the underedge evidently as keen as that of a razor. Like a razor also, it's massy and heavy, tapering from the underedge into a solid and broad structure above. It was ended to a weighty rod of bronze, and the whole hissed and groaned as it swung through the air. I could no longer doubt the doom prepared for me by monkish ingenuity and torture. What boots it to tell of the long hours of horror, more than mortal, during which I found the rushing vibrations of the steel. Inch by inch, line by line, with a descent appreciable only in intervals that seemed ages. Down and still down it came. Days passed. It might have been that many days passed. Yeah, it swept so closely as to fan me with its acrid breath. The odor of the sharp steel forced itself into my nostrils. I prayed. I wearied heaven with my prayer. I grew frantically mad and struggled to force myself upward against the sweep of the fearful scimitar. Then I felt suddenly calm and lay smiling at the glittering death. As a child at some rare ball. But even amid the agonies of that feeling, nature craved food. Painful effort, I extended my left arm as far as my bonds permitted and took possession of the small remnant spared me by the rats. As I put a portion of it within my lips, it came to my mind a half-formed thought of joy, of hope. Yet what business had I with hope? It was, as I say, a half-formed thought. Man has many such which are never complete. He has struggled in vain to perfect, to regain it. Oh, suffering and nearly annihilated all my ordinary powers of mind. It was an idiot. The pendulum was at right angles to my length. I now observed that it was designed across the region of the heart. It would fray the surge of my robe and return and repeat its operations. Again and again and again. Down, steadily down it came. To the right, to the left, far and wide, with the shriek of a damned spirit, to my heart, with the stealthy pace of the tiger. Down, certainly relentlessly down. It now vibrated within 3 inches of my bosom. I struggled violently, furiously to free my left arm, yet all in vain. Down, still unceasingly, still inevitably down. I gasped and I struggled at each vibration. I now observed that at some 10 or 12 vibrations, the steel would be in actual contact with my robe. And with this thought, there came all the keen, collective calmness of despair. In that calm, there flashed upon my mind what I cannot better describe than as the unformed half of that idea of deliverance to which I had previously alluded. The whole thought was now present, feeble, scarcely sane, scarcely definite, but still entire. I now proceeded with all the nervous energy of despair to attempt its execution. For some time now, the immediate vicinity of the framework upon which I lay had been swarming with rats. They were wild, bold, ravenous, glaring upon me with their red eyes as if they waited but for motionlessness on my part to make me their prey. What food, I thought, have they been accustomed in the well? They had devoured, in spite of my best efforts to prevent it, all but a small remnant of the contents of the dish. These thoughts of mine, I proceeded to collect the particles of food and rub it thoroughly over my bandage wherever I could reach it. Then, resting my hand upon the framework, I lay breathlessly still. First, the ravenous animals were startled and terrified at the change and the cessation of movement. But this was only for one moment. I had not counted in vain upon their voracity. Upon absorbing my lack of motion, 1 or 2 of the bones leapt upon the framework and smelt the bandage. Seeing the sign for a general rush, forth they came from the well, hurriedly, in fresh troops. They clung to the wood, they overran it, they leaped upon my person in the thousands. They pressed, they swarmed upon me, never accumulating heat. Their leaps on my own, their rights upon my throat. I was half stifled by the thronging pressure. Disgust, for which the word has no name, swelled in my bosom and chilled with a heavy clamminess my heart. Yet, 1 minute, and I knew that the struggle would be over. I plainly perceived the loosening of the bandages. In more than one place, I knew they must already be severed. More than human resolution. And still, I erred in my calculations. Nor had I endured in vain. At last I felt that I was free. The bandage hung with ribbons about my body. But the sweep of the pendulum was now upon my breast. It had divided the surge of the robe and cut through the linen beneath. Twice again it swung, and a sharp sense of pain shot through every nerve. But the moment of escape had arrived. A steady movement, cautious, sidelong, shrinking and slow. I slipped from the embrace of the bandages and beyond the reach of the fearful scimitar. I had scarcely stepped from my one bed of horror upon the stone floor of the prison when the motion of the hand into my seized, and I beheld it drawn up as if by some invisible force through the ceiling. This lesson I took desperately to heart. My every motion was undoubtedly watched. Free! I could escape death in one form of agony, only to be delivered to worse than death in some other. I rolled my eyes nervously, and under the barriers of iron that hemmed me in. Something unusual, some change which at first I could not appreciate distinctly, and obviously taking place in the apartment. Alteration never once broke upon my understanding. Even while I breathed, there came to my breath the vapor of heated iron. A suffocating odor pervaded the prison. I gasped for breath. There could be no doubt as to the design of my tormentors. Oh, most unrelenting! Oh, most demonic of men! I sprang back from the glowing walls to the center of the cell. Amid the thought of the fiery destruction that impended, the idea of the coolness of the well came over my soul like balm. I rushed to its deadly brink and threw my straining vision below. The glare from the enkindled roof illumined its inmost recesses. Yet, for a wild moment, my spirit refused to comprehend the meaning of what I saw. Oh, for a voice to speak! Oh, horror! Oh, any horror but death! Weeping bitterly, I buried my face in my hands and shrank back from the margin. The rapidly increased, and just once again, I looked up to the ceiling, shuddering as with the pit of the ache. In a second change of the cell. In an instant, the apartment had shifted its form into that of a lozenge, an oval pit of red hot iron. Death, I said! Any death but that of the pit! Oh, fool! Might I have not known that into the pit it was the object of the burning iron to urge me? Could I resist its glow? Or if even that, could I withstand the pressure? Flatter grew the lozenge, and at its center yawned the gulf. I shrank back, but the glowing wall led me resistlessly onwards. At length, I seared and writhing body. There was not an inch of foothold on the firm stone floor of the prison. I struggled no more. The agony of my soul underwent one long, loud, final scream of despair. I felt that I tottered upon the brink. I averted my eyes. There was a discordant hum of human voices. There was a blast as of many trumpets, a grating as of 1,000 thunders. An outstretched arm caught my own as I felt. Faint into the abyss. That Chandilya saw. French army had entered the walls of Toledo. The Inquisition was now in the hands